morning. Welcome to Donnybrook. Next up, Alvin, Reid, Charlie, Brennan, and we are joined this evening by County Executive Dr. Sam Page, also running for re-election against Republican candidate Mark Mantovani. And Dr. Page, I'll start off by saying, so were you like kind of the rest of us when you learned who your opponent would be in this upcoming election?
Well, I've run against Mark in the past, so we kind of know what to expect. He's run twice as a Democrat and now as a Republican, and you know, I'm looking forward to a conversation about the issues in our community.
And you're going to be having a conversation.
That's right.
Televised. Do we know the date on that one?
November 1st.
Okay.
Why should people vote to re-elect you, Dr. Sam Page?
Well, I've led the county through some very difficult times in the past 3 years. Historic events, any one of them would have been a landmark. Cleaning up after the last county executive was indicted and went to prison. Managing the civil rights conversation after the death of George Floyd, of course, navigating the COVID pandemic, the humanitarian relief, the public health response, the economic recovery, and now a very difficult conversation in our community after the Dobbs decision and access to abortion. Very difficult times.
All right, any one of those we could do an entire show on.
Right.
But all right, let's start with City Council. All right, you've had tumultuous evenings, especially over the last year. What is the relationship with your fellow Democrats on the council, and why are they just so faction-oriented where everybody seems to blame you?
Well, we forget that for the past 3 days or 3 decades, there's been an enormous amount of conflict from time to time between the council and the county executive. It's almost a natural sort of sine wave process. The past couple of years, I think we saw a little bit of leftover from the election cycle 2 years earlier. It's unusual for the county executive to be on a 2-year election cycle. That was part of the fallout of the previous administration. There was a difference of opinion surrounding the response to the public health response to the pandemic, and that was primarily partisan, but I think that's probably what got us started off on the wrong foot. And that just kind of lingered. But since August, I think relationships are much better. The council's running pretty smoothly, and we're looking forward to the next year.
All right, specifically, County Chair Reid Days, County Board Member Shalonda Webb, where do you stand with them? Are adversarial?
Well, and I believe we have a pretty good relationship, even though we disagreed on some policy issues. Sometimes we forget that most of what happens in the day-to-day operation of county government is an executive function. Most of what goes through the county council, 99% of it we agree on. But because of the times we're living in 2022, politics is very intense at the state level. We saw a meltdown in the state legislature last year. We had an insurrection 18 months ago at the national level. This is just a tumultuous time. So when there are differences of opinion, they get amplified. And the few times that we did agree, they got a lot of attention.
You had an extraordinary moment in St. Louis County history when you and the city and the Regional Sports Authority won $512 million in a lawsuit. I mean, just money coming your way like never before. So let's say it's evenly split, you know, 3 ways. It's $160 some odd million for each of you. How are you going to spend that money?
Well, first of all, I don't think we need to get in a hurry today to spend it. We're still working through the stimulus funds. We also will be receiving about $45 million of the opioid settlement to St. Louis County. Now, that'll be received in steps over the years, but that'll help us with our public health footprint. But I think the windfall that we have from the NFL settlement, I think we should look at the core functions of county government and make sure we're doing those well. The crime and public safety, which we're doing well in St. Louis County. Crime is down 15 to 19% year to date, and we're proud of that direction. But we also have a public health footprint, and we have a lot of opportunity around workforce development. If we're going to grow our region, we need to grow the jobs. And even though we've added thousands of jobs to St. Louis County in the past 3 years, we still need to do a better job of addressing the gaps in all business sectors in trained workforce.
A lot of people, Doctor, are just, they don't understand why the $512 million, which is currently on the sidelines as people mull how to spend it, is in a low interest bearing account. And by one estimate in today's paper, we're losing $14,000 a day because we're not taking advantage of higher interest rates. How do you justify that?
Well, we're going to be moving that to higher interest rate account. Over the past 3 months, we've noticed that interest rates have ticked up. We're also in a very volatile, extraordinary volatile economy, and we have to be cautious with government funds on how we invest them. And we've been talking through our differences of opinion on what the right risk was and what the right return on interest should be. But that's, as we've seen interest rates tick up, I think we found the right vehicle. There's a process because there's 3 plaintiffs. There's a process for the RSA to pass a resolution to allow that to happen, and that takes a little bit of time. But we're moving pretty promptly. But we have to be cautious in our current economy to make sure that we're balancing risk and return.
Dr. Page, you mentioned crime. Your opponent says that that's the #1 issue in this election. And do you have like a laid out crime plan as to exactly how you're going to address crime in St. Louis County?
Well, it's relatively common in politics when people, opponents are unhappy with the outcome to complain about the process. But what's happened in St. Louis County is crime is down 15 to 19%. Violent crime, homicides, it's down in St. Louis County. So we can talk about the process, and we have had a thorough evaluation of our police department. I asked Teneo, the premier police consulting organization in the country, to come in and look at our police department. They spent a year there, and they gave us a list of recommendations, and we've been implementing those pretty completely. In addition to making sure our police department was at an optimal function, we've also been looking at crime from the other side around criminal justice reform, around folks that are coming through our jail. We know that half the folks committing crime in St. Louis County were once in jail, so when they come through our jail, we're pretty assertive in making sure they get back on the right path.
I know you're going to a 12-hour shift for police officers starting Christmas Day, but it didn't look, Doctor, like that worked very well in the city. They ended that after experimenting with that this summer. That's a long time to be on a shift as a police officer, isn't it?
Well, they do some 12-hour shifts. That's been a conversation between the police officers and the command staff and the police board, and this is something they want to try. I leave the management of the department to the chief and the police commission. I try to help them with major policy decisions, and we're going to see how this works.
And if once everybody has signed off on the money and we figure out how to split it up, would you designate some just portion of it directly to go to public safety?
Well, I think first of all, we need a rainy day fund. We have some long-term structural issues around our budget that have been developing over the past 15 years, so we'll hold some of it back. We've invested a great deal of funds in public safety, and we'll continue to do that. We're building 2 new police stations. We're breaking ground on one of those next week. We've increased our police officer salaries from 30 to 50%. Depending on your assignment over the past 4 or 5 years since Proposition P passed. You know, I think crime and public safety in a general sense would be an appropriate use of some of those funds.
Would you hire more police officers?
Well, we'll continue to staff our police department as it's recommended by Teneo. I do believe they have some vacancies, and we continue to try and fill those vacancies. We haven't turned away qualified applicants. We're still trying to hire folks in St. Louis County. But I think part of that process is the benefit package. Part of that process is the environment and the morale in the department. There's a lot that goes into that.
You don't have to be told that the price of things has gone sky high. Today, there's a story that Spire is going to ask for a 10% increase in natural gas. And of course, gasoline for cars, that price is up, generally speaking. Food prices are up, rent, mortgages are more expensive right now. And as it turns out, there's a state law that says that if the value of your used car goes up, well, the tax will go up. And it's a car that someone in St. Louis County may have had just sitting in the garage, but because the value of cars are going up, the personal property tax assessed to that new value will also go up. So St. Charles rolled back the personal property tax rate. I know you've got an economic or a budget problem in St. Louis County right now, but would you give the little guy a break by rolling back that personal property tax?
Well, I think first of all, we got to look at the structure of our budget. I'm concerned about a personal property tax cut and its impact on our budget, since 48% of my general fund budget, 48% goes to public safety. So when we're talking about rolling back taxes, we need to keep in mind that we have some basic services to provide in the community. And one of those is making sure that our police department is appropriately funded. So I'd have to make sure that the revenue stream was safe for the police department first.
But you had a press conference about a week or so ago saying there's a big hole in the budget that wouldn't be solved by rolling back the property tax. Am I right?
Well, certainly rolling back the taxes don't help solve budget holes. We also have to recognize that we're also paying more for things in county government. We're paying more for insurance, we're paying more for fuel, for our parked vehicles and for our police cars, and for our transportation and public works. Asphalt costs more to fix roads. So our expenses are going up too. We want to be very thoughtful about the tax rate in our community. We want to be very thoughtful about tax increases. But before we talk about rolling back taxes, we need to understand that our budget is solid and we can continue to provide those basic services that people have come to expect.
We had a disagreement on the previous show concerning the records that were at the animal shelter that became contaminated, and then the process at which they were destroyed. Can you enlighten us on, the path to destruction of those records? And was that the thing to do? Now, I know you're a physician, and I took the side of it's just disgusting, get rid of them. So, was that the path to go down?
Well, anytime there's litigation around an issue, you're going to get a little bit of an exaggerated explanation of current events. And what happened in the animal shelter, they had records that were stored in a room. The records were contaminated. They went through the process to digitize the ones that needed to be saved. They have digital records of a lot of that. They went through the records retention that was requested by the folks that they were in litigation with. The process was broken when they decided that because the records were contaminated, that they were going to go ahead and dispose of those before the county council voted to do it. Every county council meeting, there's 2 or 3 requests to dispose of old records that have been digitized and scanned. So we have another copy of them. We don't need them anymore. Records that can't possibly be used anymore. We believe that the records that were thrown away aren't anything that anybody would want. The fact that they were contaminated made them in a hurry to get rid of them. But we're doing an investigation. We'll find out. We'll make sure that we didn't lose anything that should have been kept. But the break in the process was getting rid of them without council approval, and that shouldn't have happened. I understand they were contaminated. I would have erred on the side of preserving them and waiting a few more days until we could go through the proper process.
So you acknowledge that the process was not followed?
Well, I believe it wasn't, because in order to destroy records, you're supposed to get county council approval. But I don't believe that there was anything intentional here. Most of those records are digitized. They did acknowledge that there was a legal hold on some of them. I believe they saved the records that there was a legal hold on. So, but the process, however routine it appears to be, since I've been on the council and involved in government for 8 years, we destroy old records that aren't needed anymore every week. But that's a process, and we should be following it.
What did you make of the story? Maybe 3 weeks ago, we discussed it on Donnybrook. A company called Ulrich. They're in Chesterfield, and they make spinal implants. And they say they're moving to Dallas, Texas, doctor, because they want to go to a place that has a lot of talented, educated individuals and a place that is receptive to business. So they're moving from St. Louis County, they say, to Texas for a better business environment. Do they have a point? Is there something about St. Louis County that's not a good place to do business?
Well, I think anything in the plant or life science, medical technology, pharmaceutical technology, St. Louis is a robust place to do business. We have great plant and life science research. We have great startup environment for the market application of that new technology and new research. Anything healthcare related, I think St. Louis is a great place to be. I don't know the specifics of their company. I don't know the incentive package that was offered to them, or what sort of raw materials resource relationships they need in their specific business line, or if they've got a relationship with a research institution that was important to them. But this is a great place to start a business, to grow a business, to bring a business. We got a lot of assets here in St. Louis County.
Well, a recent study just being written about has got St. Louis as one of the most dangerous cities in America. Okay, but that's based on the crime rate in the city of St. Louis. Some are calling for, there's got to be some way that like St. Louis County can be included in that statistical information. Is there any way to do that without eliminating that boundary and merging the city and the county?
That's a great question. It's been asked for a couple of decades. I've asked it again since I've been county executive. That is a decision that has to be approved by the Department of Justice to combine the metropolitan service area statistics for St. Louis County, St. Louis City, and all of the municipalities within St. Louis County. And we need to get approval from the Department of Justice to do that.
So the people of city or county wouldn't necessarily have to
We can't do that.
any kind of vote or anything like that. Just
No.
why wouldn't they do that?
Well, I would have to ask the federal government that. That's their decision.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things we're looking at, we're considering. I think there's two things to address our brand as having a crime that is too high. One is to do everything we can to lower the crime rate and lower the statistic by addressing the problem. The second is to look at how that rate is calculated. And we know it's not fair that if the city and the county were put together in crime statistics, that we'd be somewhere in the middle of the pack of metropolitan areas in the country, and that's probably closer to where the truth is.
Well, that would be if you measured per capita for the city. But if you added up the homicides in East St. Louis and the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, you would still be higher than cities like Boston, Nashville, Denver. There's just, no matter how you count it.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that a homicide rate in our region is good. I think any homicide is a tragedy, and we should be working to eliminate them all. In St. Louis County, we have a great homicide clearance rate, but in any metropolitan region, that's part of crime. It's a terrible thing, and we need to be working every day to reduce it and eliminate it.
Why do you think St. Louis County, Doctor, did not increase in population according to the census in the first 2 years of this decade? It went down a little bit. It's below 1 million right now. We're seeing counties like St. Charles and Franklin and Jefferson County increasing population, but St. Louis County down a little bit. What's going on?
Well, St. Louis County has 25% of the jobs in the state, and I think the fundamental issue in growing your county is to grow the jobs. And then we want St. Louis County to be a great place to live and work and raise your families, and we have to address crime and public safety. We have to address public health. Those are the jobs of local government. Some people will prefer to work in St. Louis County and live a little bit away where they can get a little bit more elbow room, a little bit more space. And we have to accept that. But we don't have 25% of the population in the state. We have 25% of the jobs. I would like to continue to grow our population. We'll continue to talk to our research institutions about the best way to do that. But I think it starts with jobs and providing basic services and continuing this conversation about workforce development.
Your opponent brings this up a lot. Mr. Manavani says, hey, all the kids of his friends are moving out of town. They're going to Austin and New York and places like that.
Yeah, Austin's booming. It's one of the fastest growing places in the country. But I want to win the kid campaign too. I talk about it all the time. There's 3 ways to improve our population, improve the workforce that we have available here to address our shortages of employees. One is to win the kid campaign and get our kids to stay here, not just get our kids to stay here, but get the kids that are coming to SLU and WashU and our other universities from out of town, get them to stay here after they finish college. And to do that, they have to be proud of St. Louis region. Not only do they have to think it's safe, but they have to believe that we treat people fairly. And this is a place where they'd want to raise their families, that it has values similar to theirs. And so winning the kid campaign is your own kids. It's the kids that are coming here. We need to have reasonable and rational immigration policy. We should be fighting for these Afghan refugees. We hit a home run with the Bosnian immigration wave 30 years ago. And we need to recognize that rational immigration policy helps grow our community. There are still racially and economically segregated neighborhoods that have been left behind, and we need to be investing in those and make sure those kids have an opportunity too.
Yeah, we've discussed crime. Now, as you're out stumping the campaign trail, what are you hearing? What are people coming to you like say, you know what you could do for me? Blank. What would that be?
Well, most people feel safe in St. Louis County. I mean, we talk about crime, but most people feel safe. And that doesn't mean we stop working on it. We're going to always continue to try and improve that. Most people are talking about inflation and jobs. I can't get enough people to come and work in my restaurant or my manufacturing company or my laundromat. Everywhere, every business sector, folks are looking for employees. And one of the things that we have to do in local government is try and address that and figure out how we can get more people to come and work and get some people who've decided to retire or take themselves out of the workforce. We have to figure out a way to get them to come back.
Let me ask you a little something about just the area in general, which I think I've seen a lot of litter on highways, on roads, some county, some municipal, but are we having a little trouble these days kind of invoking the spirit of Lady Bird Johnson and cleaning up the area? Do you notice it as well?
Yeah, with the trash along the roads frustrates us a bit for sure. And, you know, we have programs to address that. We're, in St. Louis County, we're pretty aggressively going after a plan for problem properties, commercial and residential. There's some exciting legislation that'll be moving next year to help us clear titles to move problem properties more quickly. And I think that's one of the things you're going to see are some of our ARPA funds going to, and some of our other revenue that we can find is trying to clear problem properties.
You know, Doctor, there are some states that actually hire the incarcerated or people in jails to get outside, get some fresh air and sunshine, earn a little bit of money, and declutter or pick up the litter. Is there any possibility that a program like that or other cities are actually engaging the homeless and paying them to pick up litter, which seems to be, in a period of a labor shortage, a great way to kind of solve two problems? Get some money in the hands of somebody who might not have much money, the homeless guy or gal, and make the city or the county a little more beautiful.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I haven't really explored that before. I know that I have heard some complaints of folks who, you know, land at the airport and drive home and are concerned that that's the first impression people get of our community along the interstate. And I think we could redouble our efforts, not only along our interstate highways, but some of our arterial roads.
Have you talked to County Executive Steve Ellman on his thoughts on how to make the region safer and St. Louis's airport?
Well, Steve's a good friend. I served with him in the legislature. I talked to him a lot. We don't agree on everything, but most of what we do in local government is just making the place run and working together and getting our roads fixed. You know, Steve has some strong feelings about crime and public safety, and he's you know, written about it a little bit, and we've talked about that. St. Charles County just recently signed an MOU with St. Louis County, so our police departments are cooperating on intelligence and technology in a way that they never have, and we've been working with him for a couple of years to finalize that. There were some details that were a little sticky. I think one of the opportunities in crime and public safety in our region is to get more cooperation between, not just within the county, but within county jurisdictions, sharing intelligence, sharing technology, sharing information through license plate readers and cameras, and we're going to try and see if we can't make some investments there.
Dr. Page, one of the employees in the county, Tony Weaver, was indicted and then later pleaded guilty to trying to scam the federal government. How much responsibility, if any, do you accept for the fact that here was a guy who's going to prison and he was on the county payroll?
Yeah, it's frustrating. We have a $1 billion budget in St. Louis County and 3,800 employees, and sometimes they disappoint us. When they do, it's my responsibility to move quickly and deal with it. And that was one of them. I was really disappointed to hear that, and when I learned of it, I fired him immediately. Tony's job at the jail was to help be a liaison between residents of the jail and their families, and the Justice Service Advisory Committee told me that he was doing that. Getting involved in applications for COVID money wasn't his responsibility. He wasn't supposed to be in that space, and he got caught up in it, and he's going to have to answer for it.
Okay, you think you'll get votes North County, South County, west of Clayton, from all over the county?
Well, I have pretty broad support. I'm hearing from folks all over the county, pretty positive feedback. You know, when you're in public office, you make a lot of decisions. We talked about the 4 big crises that we've managed in the past 3 years. All of those came with hard decisions where not everyone agreed with you. So you collect some folks that are upset, and you hear from a lot of folks that are really happy with what you're doing. Whenever I go out, I usually have a few folks that want to take the picture, and a few folks want to tell me that I should do something a little differently. And we try to listen to everybody.
You mentioned Steve Ellman, guys, earlier, St. Charles County Executive. We have less than 2 minutes to go, but he'd like a little more regional control of Lambert, the international airport that's in St. Louis County, but owned and operated by St. Louis City, which is a little bit of a weird thing. But since so many people in St. Louis County use Lambert, should someone living in St. Louis County be allowed to work there? Should people in St. Louis County have a seat on that airport commission?
Yeah. So I have 4 appointees to the airport commission, and I believe that St. Charles County maybe has 1. The airport commission does a pretty good job at representing our interests and our concerns, and the airport director is really a pretty good listener when I have concerns. She's good at hearing. But I think the airport's going to get better. We know we've got a new terminal plan. We're excited about that. Steve's been working on regional control of the airport for about 20 years. He had a bill in the legislature to address that when he was a state senator. I don't know if that's going to get anywhere, but I am happy to learn that the airport is going to get a new terminal, and that's going to be good for our community.
Okay, you do anything for fun these days, or in the last 30 seconds? I know you're a busy man, so.
Well, we've got a little farm in southern Missouri where I grew up, and get down there on the weekends sometimes and tool around a little bit. It's not a working farm with animals. It's mostly a large green space, but we've got some conservation programs going there.
All right. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks for having me.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.